Sorry, what's up?
I know you were. I think you were hotkeying there, mate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Between Two Keepstars. I'm your host, Rycker, and I have here with me my other beautiful Scottish host, Dex.
Hey, man.
And with us today, we have three guests, actually, which is actually the most that we've ever had on the show. We've got Gorgon,
Hi.
Loki Choco Chips,
Hey.
and Phantomite, who I am just meeting for the first time.
Good evening.
So, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Lucky Choco Chips. I do stuff on Trash Talk Tuesdays. You might have seen me there. I'm part of Dreadbomb. I'm the CEO of Banana Republic, which is a corporation in Dreadbomb.
I'm Gagarin Musu. You might have seen me on talking stations, and I also sometimes show up on Trash Talk Tuesday. And I'm in Capital Fusion, which is a corporation in Pandemic Horde. I've in the past been in Waffles, and I started out my EVE career as an FC with EVE University.
And Phantomite, not from same great taste, but from No Handlebars, a much better name than the current CSM member for LowSec.
Weren't you part of that 420 Blaze It pandemic?
Yeah, I can't stand it. Baltram thought it was super funny, and he had that name reserved for like a year beforehand, and he kept on asking, "Oh, can I use it? Can I use it?" It's his alliance; he can do what he likes, but he wanted, like, I kept on saying I hated it, and then I cracked and I said, if I get voted into the CSM, I'll approve it, and then I did, and I wasn't expecting to. So there we go. But I managed to convince him in the end that it was awful.
It's amazing what people will do just for a good joke.
It's not a good joke though.
Nah, I can't see it. I can't see. It's a joke, but not a fucking very good one.
It's not. It's funny for 30 seconds in the year 2008.
I think I got killed by one of your guys once with that alliance handle, and I just felt bad. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? It looks like a bunch of idiots flying with that tag. And I know that I kind of the opinion these days that it's kind of nice to be able to fly a bit under the radar or make yourself look like you're stupid so that people don't take you seriously, but it was too much. Well, that's why I have this stupid name. I mean, that was kind of part of the thought process.
I noticed the corp ticker when I first saw 420 whatever and realized it was Baltram's guys under a different name.
I mean, I do wonder, and you know, I don't know where you would possibly find the data to see if this was true or not, but I do wonder if sort of changing alliance name like 3 times within a year sort of keeps you a little bit quieter, sort of gets rid of times where you've maybe scared a bunch of other people. I don't know. Maybe it's been good. Maybe it hasn't made a difference at all.
We can only speculate, really, can't we?
Well, I think on the other hand, all of you here have been like, "Oh, Baltram's guys," so apparently it didn't matter what the alliance was called. You all knew him.
Yeah, that's what I usually call you because I don't really keep track of what alliance you're in at any given time. It's just this. It's mostly the same group, right?
Yeah, it's basically exactly the same group. It's exactly the same group, but with a few extra guys in the last 3 months, we've grown a fair bit. And what do you attribute that growth to? Being a low-sec entity? We had a Baltram is on and off emo and not emo about EVE Online, and when he is feeling EVE Online, he goes out and he tries to get fights. And obviously, you know, this is EVE Online. It's like raking your eyeballs trying to get a good fight. But you know, when he manages, people see it, people turn up, it certainly helps that his message reaches out in his streams.
So speaking of stream, we actually have a question for Phantomite. Do you think the new eat change encourages just more Rorquals and Losec, and can that be a good thing?
I have a thing about Rorquals in Losec. When CCP gave Losec a bunch of, was it Nox? Was it Nox that they gave to Losec? You know, there were already some Rorqual opportunities in Losec with moons, but I completely, there we go, Crowkite, thank you, Akulu. I Rorquals, to function with a Rorqual, you need a backup fleet, especially in Losec. You cannot just as a 10-man corp deploy a Rorqual unless you are in the middle of absolutely nowhere where nobody looks at all, which isn't a lot of Losec. Somebody will see you at some point, and if they see you once, they're going to look again every day. And if they see you once in a Rorqual there, you need to have a big backup fleet to fly a Rorqual to come and save you in the 5 to 7 minutes after that you have of panic. And so if you have a big bunch of guys, you can fly a Rorqual, and if you can fly a Rorqual with a bunch of guys supporting you, that will encourage other people to do it, which will encourage more defenders, which will encourage more Rorquals, which will encourage more defenders. But perhaps more insidiously, you don't want your Rorquals to die. It's your method of income for your members. So you will create non-aggression pacts, or well, hopefully you don't, but to be able to facilitate more Rorqual mining, you make people are making non-aggression pacts in Losec, and then it's basically a coalition without zero fighting between them. And it's basically Rorquals in their current form are just a blob creator. So I do not regard the Crowkite as a gift to Losec. I think it was poison.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, man. I've been in nullsec for the last, I don't know, 3.5 years or something like that. Previous, I was a lowsec guy, and then I came back to, being lowsec, we'll say part-time with Dreadbomb and RC. We also do a lot of nullsec stuff, but I think it's absolutely, I mean, they're trying to just recreate nullsec and lowsec, which I think is a giant mistake. And I will be the first, well, not the first one. I know lots of people talked about passive moons. I've, really been a big, supporter of the conversation that leads towards passive moons, at least in lowsec, which will do nothing but bring content, I hope, and support the PvP groups that, I mean, used to exist at least. And I mean, I know, Dreadbomb is definitely one of those groups that wishes that we could just make income on a lower effort basis. And even if it's
low
not
effort,
great,
don't sell yourself short. It's not low effort. It's
well,
money for
it's definitely
PvP.
not.
It's money for
Exactly.
PvP.
Sure. And I mean, it just doesn't require us to mega industrialize and hug large entities and make deals with people and all the things that you're saying, right? Because we want to save our, or have backup when our oracles get tackled. And the same thing is kind of on the snuff side too, right? Like snuff exist and are able to just get bigger and stronger because they have that backup, or they're making packs themselves. So at the end of the day, it's not healthy for what used to be, or what I would consider the ecosystem of lowsec at all.
And something that I've been pushing hard for CCP. So two things here. First of all, we've obviously got these upcoming industry changes, and some people have correctly looked at it, and they've started talking about the fact that to purchase ships at a reasonably efficient rate, at an efficient price, and get as many as you need, you kind of need to have an industrial wing. Now, first of all, you needed an industrial wing to be a very large group before these upcoming changes anyway. So this is just making it a little bit more pointed, a little bit more needed. But what I would really like there to be in this game is I would like CCP at the same time to provide ISK making opportunities for individuals that is non-industry focused. And we need those opportunities in lowsec. Now, a lot of people have said to me also when I say that, they're like, "Oh, well, you fly a Rorqual," and it's like, but the Rorqual is exclusively usable and encouraging blobs. What we need is a alternate mining style, which in my mind we would see as, let's imagine that you spend, I'm using imaginary numbers here just for illustration. Let's say you mine for an hour to make 50 million ISK, right? In a Rorqual. Now, it's going to be higher than that, but just for illustration purposes, let's say an hour and 50 million ISK. What I would like there to be in EVE Online is I would like there to be something that you can spend an hour doing, but 90% of that time is some form of exploration or seeking, and then the final 10% of the time is actual mining. That way, and I want the same reward for that. That hour's work, I want the same reward in terms of minerals. That way, it would be something that is not focused on sitting a big ship stationary for an hour, being vulnerable, needing a blob to protect it. And instantly, that becomes an individual's source of income that is unrelated to how big your blob is. And I call that concept prospecting rather than mining. If we really must have minerals as the income method, that's what I'd like to see.
Going on top of that, though, Fantomate, like, do you have a theory on how you can stop mining being so insanely boring?
Yeah, destroy, take it out of the game completely, and if we need a way to get minerals into the game, make it be something that you do another way, and then you just get the minerals. I mean, this way is a way of getting minerals. It's just you get them in the last 10 minutes rather than in the over the course of an hour sitting stationary cycling a module on a rock.
Yeah, I tried mining just recently, as like obviously the war ongoing. As much as I'm enjoying burning most of Goon's stuff, you need a wee bit of variety in life. And I tried mining, and I went through one full load, and I had to put the ship away. I was nearly in tears. It was that boring. So
This isn't a video game anymore. I mean, I also, I mean, in the past, one of my my income method a number of years ago was I spent a couple of years running numbered DED sites in LowSec, and it's not fascinating gameplay. It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's just shooting rats, right? But it was a million times more engaging than sitting and cycling a laser or drones, right? Unbelievable.
I always end up drinking excessively every time I take the Rorqual out, not gonna lie. And not that I do that often, but when I do it, I've usually like half in the bag, whilst getting tackled, and then we just drop hot dreads and have fun. But yeah, it's an incredibly static and boring thing. If they made even that just a little bit more interesting, that would be a huge improvement. But like, I don't know, man. I really feel like LowSec doesn't need to get more people out into space, in my opinion. Like, I think LowSec is a dynamic PvP area. It always has been. The majority of it. Faction warfare, if you fix that a little bit and made that a little bit more dynamic, I don't know what the state of that currently is. I know that they did do some changes. I'm not a faction warfare guy anymore, but I had a blast back when I was a noob, like in faction warfare, and that was very dynamic. I was able to go around in solo and get fights and have fun.
Something you can't do in anywhere in EVE Online is you can't make people not team up, right?
True.
It's optimal. But what CCP can do is they can stop building tools and systems into the game that encourages and accelerates it.
Yeah,
I kind of
mean,
want
fair
to
enough.
see more stuff that you can hold on to and just make money by holding on to it. Like, people like to say that passive income sources don't have any work involved in making money, but
It's fighting.
yeah,
That's the work.
defending them is work.
That's the work. The only difference is the work is fun.
Right. Depending on who you ask, but the majority of the player base would say that, yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. And I mean,
So-
you are right though, Phantomite. I mean, it may like if so, for example, if I'm some new dude to the game to low sec and I want to go and mine it, I don't actually need an entity to keep me safe in order to do so. I might just start my own corporation and have like a little 1-man or 2 alt kind of thing going on and just do my own thing and have fun. And
Sure.
maybe
I mean, did you mean to mention mining there? You want to mine as a couple of characters in low sec?
no, what you like? Sorry. So what if we backtrack?
Sorry.
What were you talking about? Getting minerals for doing whatever
Yes.
little adventure game we're gonna do. If I could do that and make the minerals as opposed to needing a group to protect me to mine, then I would probably definitely. I mean, that would definitely be a starting point for people out of high sec as well.
And at that moment, that instantly stops being something that encourages and scales with being a blob.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're taking a little bit of the N+1 out of the game, which I'm always for.
So one thing I've also, well, someone brought up in chat is missions. Now I've tried to do level 5 missions in low sec, and I've realized that okay, these are really really hard, and it seems like all the places where there's level 5 missions, you've got just a ton of people camping and trying to kill mission runners.
You have to be a nearby dominant force if you want to run level 5 missions and not get constantly interrupted and having to walk back to the station and dock.
Do you think that has definitely contributed to sort of like a block mentality within low sec?
No, the mechanics of the missions themselves aren't direct blob core. They don't need a blob to defend. You could just warp out, right? It's very difficult to actually catch level 5 mission running carriers, for example. They just warp out, right? You've got to spend at least 30 seconds probing and land on them and point them and tank and get the other guys in to be able to kill them. It's not it doesn't benefit from there being a blob because they can't just use their ult to light a Cyno and bring in support. I just don't think that level 5 missions are a acceptable alternate form of income because it's just you have to get a bunch of standings. You have to quite usually what you do is you seed a carrier in every system where you might receive a mission. It's not a very good system for personal income unless you're willing to put all that effort in.
They're great for if you can afford multiple carriers for this.
That's exactly right. It's got a big barrier to entry.
Well, like,
You're gonna
I've been
need-
looking into level 5 missions, and I found a guide that basically showed me how to do it with a Bargus. Bargus didn't work, but it seemed like the only missions that I could go in and do them in were areas where there was a dominant force, and it made it incredibly difficult to actually go in and do that.
Right. It's a
Do you think that-
resource.
Do you
It's a
think that if
resource.
BCP made it to where they were available in more systems, then it would make it less imposing of like making it so that there's a dominant force controlling that level 5 mission area? Because when you think about it, missions aren't like a finite resource. You can do them almost indefinitely.
And it doesn't matter how many people are doing them. If you're all, I mean, if there's like 10 people trying to do them, then all 10 of them will get spooked and stay docked, because eventually somebody will just decloak and point one of your carriers if you do it with a whole bunch of people there. But yeah, it is unlimited in the number of people you can have doing it essentially. Actually, do you know what? The more people doing it, the lower the value of the SP, the loyalty points go.
And as Galley Code chat points out, it doesn't help that the mission LP right now is shit as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of a little bit of a faction warfare problem as well. It kind of overlaps a little bit.
Yeah, because the whole point that I wanted to make was that if you got this dominant area or this dominant group in an area where level 5s are, I feel like people would more likely join that group, thus making it a bigger block.
Yeah.
But I see what you guys are saying.
It doesn't it doesn't have the same immediate obvious scaling like Rorke Calls does.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that larger blocks in nullsec exist right now is going to be kind of the main issue with you going and trying to do your level 5s close to, like, for example, Kamal, right? Because I was like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of newts doing that. Like, let's go hunt, right? And like, we might not even catch you, but we're certainly gonna try, right?
Yeah,
So
if I was still blue with RC, I'd gladly run level 5s in Kamal, but not right now.
you don't run them in Kamal. They're close by, though. I believe we
I
don't
thought
actually
they
run
had
them at
an
all.
agent, or maybe it was Fastbear that has the agent.
I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it's actually Kamal. I could be wrong though.
You know, some system very within 2 or 3 jumps at most.
Yes.
But since I'm not blue with RC right now, I don't want to run level 5s anywhere near Kamal.
Oh,
I
okay.
would quickly lose my carrier.
I'm being corrected with the pings from Discord. Yes, there are level 5s in, or you can run level 5s from Kamal. Yes.
I'm looking at chat. Is RC Wrecking Crew? Yes.
RC equals Wrecking Crew. Yep.
I recently saw a battle report on where they were very much on the losing side.
Oh, I wish I'd moved all my Vexor BPCs to YMP and built them before I stopped fly with RC.
If only
Yeah.
you had a time machine. Well, it's never too late to. You could always fly with RC, Gregorian. I mean, certain entities from RC may or may not be recruiting right now. I don't know.
Well, the way it is with the very large players on both sides, I think that, you know, you've got a very good chance. Everybody has a very good chance of being able to join one side or the other, or their allies at the moment, because it's a numbers game, isn't it?
Yeah, basically most I it's hard to not be able to get into some faction unless you've already burned bridges with that faction.
And to be honest, you could probably just join a kind of scrubbier ally of the spearhead groups instead, couldn't you, if you wanted to be in on it?
And then just try to work your way up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you wanted to be on the snuff side, then you could join Baltram's Scrubby Alliance, who is currently assisting Snuff.
That is the first time I've ever heard someone saying we are assisting Snuff. I mentioned this to Rycker before, that I have respect for Snuff in a sense that they are good at being hated. If that makes sense. They have a clear direction, and in a sense that they go around just annoying everyone. Like the sheer mention of their name, everyone just growls or something. They are totally hated everywhere.
I feel like everything Snuff does is them proving a point, rather than anything for personal gain. It's like, well, I can, and I'm going to prove it.
I mean, a great person to ask that question. You guys should have try to get Wowbagger one day on the show or something, and ask him that exact question and see what the answer is.
Yeah, from what I can tell, the play style of Snuffed Out is that they want to be the bad guys of Eve, and they're successful and really good at it.
Yeah, I mean,
100%. Yeah, they are very much dedicated to being the bad guys.
I would also just argue that low-sec entities in general are not caught up in this weird like morality thing that nullsec does now, which is like, we are the good guys, we are the chosen ones, we're going to purge the game of the evil and the bad.
I'm not so sure. I think that Snuff might be a bit of an outlier.
Oh yeah, for sure. They are, yeah, for sure.
But I don't have any inside knowledge of what it's like to be part of the anti-Snuff coalition, but I do know that they formed before Snuff invaded down here, and I heard about them forming this agreement, this anti-Snuff agreement, and then I sat there for the next few weeks and I watched, and they didn't do anything about it. They didn't go and kill Snuff. Why not? What's the point in an anti-Snuff coalition if you don't actually go and try and kill Snuff? And the only thing that could come to mind is that it's not really a anti-Snuff coalition. It's actually just it's a more palatable name for a Rorqual nap.
Are you saying that they called themselves the Anti-Snuff Coalition, or?
It's how it was conveyed to me.
I
that
see.
Snuff was the intended target, and then they didn't do anything about it. So I'm like, well, what was the point then?
Well,
And
why?
I
Why
think
would
it's
you?
the same as everywhere in the game. I think it's just I think that they put a greater weight upon their own monetary prosperity than they did on their PvP prowess.
There's also the thing that Wrecking Crew is involved in. A lot of people in Wrecking Crew seem to have forgotten that a game exists outside of an 8 light year radius around Kamal.
Yeah, I mean, Dreadbomb would definitely not be one of those entities at all. But just to respond to that, I mean, why? So the one thing that Snuff, in my opinion, does better than anyone else in the entire game is they make it absolutely not worth it to come and destroy them. Like, it's just not worth it. Like, what are
Well,
you
you
gonna
mean
do?
live in a station?
Yeah, what
They
are you
live in a
gonna...
station. They have a Fortizar where they anchor their shit on. Actually, I guess
Yeah.
you have 2 Fortizars, right? And then what? So what? So we're gonna go over there, attack their Fortizar. They're gonna escalate with caps because they can, and then we're gonna escalate with caps, and they're gonna drop a bunch of slaved dreads on us, and then we're gonna lose a bunch of caps. And in the end, we've killed a Fortizar, and maybe some
Yeah.
dang frags, but we've lost so much that it's really not worth even going over there and doing it. And that's what Snuff
Mate,
does really well.
have you not seen the fights that happened in Lanthorn over the Snuff Fortizar? I don't think that a concern of the attacking side attacking the Snuff Fortizar was, look how much we've ridiculously spent killing this pointless Fortizar.
I mean,
Yeah,
I was in those fights. I'm on this show because I was in those fights, and Rycker asked me to come on and explain the RC side of the whole thing. Yeah, right. So the Lantern is not Rakapos, right? A Lantern is one jump from Secede, and then you also had Fortizars and Secede as well. And when I say you, sorry, I'm just used to Phantomite Bean and stuff. So just
Yeah, I get it.
for the record, what,
I was
like
there for a long time.
you've been in Snuff for a while, right? So
Yeah, I had
yeah.
been. Yeah.
For sure. So I mean, so Lantern and Secede are not Rakapos. Like, just to be fair, like, just to be clear, like, there's we can go and take the fight over there for and lose a bunch of shit for no reason. I mean, the reason that we're engaged where we are and doing the things that we're doing is because it's a lot closer to home than Rakapos.
Sure.
Can I just say that, like, realistically, if no-sec entities, like, let's say PanFam or anything, decide that, hey, they want to kill the Snuff Fortizar, like, they could do it pretty efficiently. Like, yeah, okay, they drop their slave dreads on our caps, then we drop Titans, and we make sure we have them tackled by Hictors and stuff, then they're dead. But the thing is, all of the effort that an entity like Horde would have to expend to actually move their Titans and do all that stuff, again, it wouldn't be worth it just to kill a Fortizar and some dreads.
Here's the thing, right? You also wouldn't be able to do it without Snuff knowing. And that's not just Snuff. Every large group in LowSec knows the general movements of every other large group, because when groups of this size, it's impossible to stop spies getting in, right? I remember even just 5 years ago, the groups in LowSec could have a chance, had they had a real chance to root spies out and keep spies out. But everybody's just so big now that you can't keep spies out, so they don't bother. So there's no surprises anymore. There's no traps being sprung. There's nothing unknown anymore, and it just contributes more and more and more to one side or the other standing down.
Right, which is like that whole nullsec thing that I hate. What was really funny is, like, so I've been FCing for a while, and so I have all these accounts for just to have eyes in places, right? Just have little scepters with cloaks that go here and go there, and keep eyes in places so that I can see things. And now it's like, oh yeah, no, we don't need that. We know exactly what they're for. Like, you can literally hear, it's just how the game has kind of evolved in the last very quickly too, and that obviously has a lot to do with buying SP and being able to inject it.
Well, in theory, obviously, there has been the rumour and so on of Discord being bought over, and no doubt with it being Microsoft, there's going to be a lot of dramatic changes. So say, and again, hypothetically speaking, you mentioned spies. Obviously, there has been, like, the main kind of focus with a lot of alliances is using Discord, but if those changes are not friendly towards using Discord for these sort of things, what alternative choice would there be? Because obviously a lot of spies would utilise the intel being shown on Discord. So what alternative choice would you have available to you then?
Oh, sorry. What would stop spies from participating in Discord?
Like, no, like, say for example, if an alliance said no, that I've had enough of Discord, what would be a different choice? Do you think?
Slack.
People installed, aside from Slack, people before Discord installed various Jabber, various Jabber software onto servers. That, I mean, a lot of people still run TeamSpeak servers, even though Discord has
Yeah.
voice. It's because TeamSpeak is just better, and there's a
Yes.
lot, and all these huge groups. It's nothing at all, essentially, in the grand scheme of things, to install a local chat server and get people to install, whatever text client they want.
And as
That means
it's real easy to create a separate account for each of those different alliances.
that being said, though, like I could just create an alt and go and put it someplace. Like it'd be actually relatively effective. The open recruitment policies of certain nullsec entities, for example, make that really easy. Or also, some of the slackened recruitment policies that upper tier nullsec blocks would have, right? So, like Phantomite alluded to earlier, I don't need to get into X big null block. I just have to get into one of their scrubby allies that go on fleets with them, right? And now I have access to quite a bit of information right off the bat. I don't need to relay anything. I can literally just do it manually if I had to, right? But I have the spy, and the reason that is the case is because it used to be that you would basically be working on this one account that basically just accrued SP through time, like it used to be, and eventually you would get an account that could get into a big null block, and then when that happened, you would have access to all these things. It would be great. But if you screwed up, sorry, you're out.
It's all right.
And now you're outed, and that account is completely useless, right? And now I guess you're selling it for ISK on the bazaar, and people are going to buy it knowing that it was probably a spy account, and like that's just how it is. Now it's just like, oh, I got caught. Okay, cool. I'm going to take all that SP and inject into this other tune, put it into this scrubby group for a little bit, kind of get my stats up a little bit, and then just keep climbing until I'm in a place where I want to be.
Or you could be a metagamer and like go and actually befriend the people inside other group and get into their public servers and everything. And then as you're just playing other games with them, they might drop something that is quote unquote OPSEC, and then you can go and tell your spy master.
Is that why you're in my Discord, Rycker? Is that why?
I mean, to be honest, what's also just extremely common and extremely valuable by itself is just somebody who is just having a spy who is just a line member who knows when a ping has happened and where you're signing into. It doesn't have to be much deeper than that. If they can just get into a dread and see that they're jumping somewhere and say, oh yeah, and 50 people jumped with me, there's the intel that might cause a stand down elsewhere and ruins a surprise. There are no surprises anymore in this game. It's terrible.
Like that's obviously, you mentioned getting people into one of the big null blocks. That's obviously one of the major downsides to the open policy recruitment. Obviously, a lot of null.
They can't protect against it, so they might as well have an open policy. Exactly, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, embracing the newbie it has its downsides because you can just basically pretend that's your first week. And obviously, with you just creating a new spy account, that will reflect on your first week. So
it's like something that Horde figured out, that it's much easier to, instead of trying to keep spies from getting in, it's much easier to just control what information you give to your line members.
Yeah, and the people that Horde is fighting are also sort of they're not bothered about those spies anymore either. It's like both sides they're not holding their breath about spies anymore. They're both just operating like that, and so they all both know what they'll be facing by the time it comes to actually fighting each other. And it's just the way the game has become. And there's no solution to this, by the way. There is no solution to spying when groups are this size. There's no solution whatsoever. It would be naturally alleviated if the game stopped rewarding and encouraging giga block growth and started offering people in opportunities to just do things by themselves without needing gigantic backup. If it did that, then I said earlier, you can't. We all know that you can't make people who are all together split up. You can't do that. But the least that could happen in this game is there could be opportunities to not have to be in one of those groups.
Well, is that not what is mentioned? Is that not what's been said in terms of obviously when this war is eventually over? Obviously, Goons only own the little. It was kind of sad. The little circle is 1DQ in the bottom left hand corner. Is it not being said once that is all over? It's just like a lot of the territory and the systems are just going to be handed out to other much smaller groups to kind of try and make an effort to go in that sort of direction.
Okay, if they are literally smaller groups and not just subgroups of a much bigger group, if they really are, then how long's that going to last?
Yeah,
it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's like obviously as you said, it's going to be a bit of a feeble effort, but it's still worth a shot because obviously as you said, with the 3 kind of null blocks, it's just getting stupid now how enormous everyone is, and like I even noticed how tests are very much following through with their mention of moving into Delve, because that was 3 or 4 systems you'd seen endless amounts of structures for Azar's Satoyos, obviously suggesting that production has been set up. So they're very much following through with their mention of moving in, which I was surprised by, because I thought it was just like another one of those kind of political statements.
Yeah, when they first announced it, I thought it was a joke when I heard that.
Exactly, yeah. I thought it was just a wind-up.
Well, the thing about that is,
Delve is very desirable because of its geography, because of its layout, and because of its links to other regions or lack of links to other regions and its distance from other places. It is not known as Fortress Delve just as a meme in the times that Goons have lived there. It is geographically very secure compared to a lot of other regions.
Well, Esoteria is obviously on the same level because you've got no NPC space there either. So that makes it incredibly difficult to access in itself.
So, it's really not, because again, Esoteria is literally right next to Stain. So you've got that whole group. One other thing too about Delve is that when Tess was like, "Yeah, I know we're gonna move in," I was kind of expecting that, because if Tess didn't move in, like there was nothing that was gonna stop Goons from just coming in and just retaking it.
Well, let's put that into perspective, right? Like the reason that all of this kind of happened was the Goon Swarm and then the upper broader coalition, the Imperium, formed such large numbers at kind of its height that, I mean, it was ridiculous, right? And like they can, complain about being blobbed all they want now, but when you have to form 3/4 of the game's characters in order to try to stop a coalition from, doing stuff, I think that's very telling, right? What I can only hope is that after everything's said and done and everyone is, I don't know, I guess the Goons are going to go someplace if 1DQ falls. If 1DQ falls, I mean, eventually I think there's no choice but to have 1DQ fall, in my opinion, but I could be very wrong, I suppose. So let's just say that there's now some form of peace and the Goons go off to lick their wounds. Like, hopefully, everyone kind of just resets each other. Now, what that looks like if the Goons try to start up again, like, what does that look like then, right? Does that just mean we're neutral to each other until the Goons get somewhat viable, and then we're going to go and destroy them again? Like, what does that look like, right? And it's a very interesting question. And it's
honestly, it looks just like that. Like Goons get strong again, we reform Voltron and we go and hit him again.
right. So you're never really kind of, gonna be. I mean, you'll be fighting each other, but like with a little like asterisk clause, winky wink, kind of in it, right? Like yeah, we're still friends, but like
I don't think it wouldn't necessarily just be Goons who would be attacked again. It's whoever would be smugging. It's whoever is smugging the most about their block is going to be the one that the other ones turn on. And depending on the personalities at the top, it could be one of the other blocks that starts
Yeah.
smugging the hardest in 3 years' time.
I think
Who everybody teams up on.
I think we all
Right.
know who that's going to be, in moving into Delve. So, but that's just me.
So
I think Test, like my very uneducated guess would be Test would be the next target, because
The next smug target.
yeah, I think that's going to be the next desired kind of place to destroy, would be Test. But I think it will be a little while. Once this is over, everyone's going to go away and be crabs for a little while or something, because
For a little while. Don't forget it took 5 years for this war to start.
yeah, like 5 years of everyone not really doing anything, apart from blowing a lot of Rorquals up.
Order
Pretty much
skirmishes,
Actually-
nothing.
So I would actually like to quickly respond to Loki's point, because Loki made the point of, what's this going to go back to? Everyone's just blue, everyone's neutral, but asterisks like really friends. So one thing that I had that was very prevalent back when I was actually in Legacy, and we were buddy with Goons and we were Imperial Legacy. What we basically had was the NIP agreement, which is non-invasion pact, where we would consistently go and fight each other all the time, and there was content to be had. But as soon as PanFam came down and tried to threaten either one of us, we would Voltron up. So in my mind, like, after this war, we are gonna test, and Pappy's still gonna be a thing, except it's only gonna be really used whenever Goons become a threat again. So essentially, PanFam and Test will continue to invade and fight each other and just skirmish, like Legacy and Goons did prior to this war. It's just we won't try and actively kill each other's space, which honestly, like, doing all that soft stuff is kind of boring anyway. I would rather just go into someone's space with a big fleet and attack them and have them attack us.
it's not
But
just
you do know that non-invasion pact with Voltron when threatened is just another name for a coalition, right?
exactly. And it's not even that. It's not even that. Like, most of those packs like also include. It's not just like, oh, we're not going to touch each other's softs. A lot of the time, it's like, okay, well, Rorquals are off the table. Okay, well, don't hit our jump bridges. Oh, you can't hit any of our industrial. Okay, no structures at all. Like, so at the end of the day, you're a coalition. Like, that's just, with a little, twist that, okay, well, we're going to go and kill each other, shoot each other's subcaps for content, maybe.
Yeah,
Necessarily. Because what happened when Imperial Legacy was a thing is that Goons would constantly attack our Rorks, and we were constantly forming to defend them. So I think depending on how the agreement is actually drawn up,
Yes, for sure.
because like prior to this whole war and back when, like right after the First World War B, you had Darkness, Test, and we were all in the north, and we didn't invade each other, but we got content all the time because we were running roams through each other's space and attacking each other's assets. The only difference from that to this was that we weren't doing boring ass, sov grinds. Because let's be real, at least with a structure grind, there's a kill mail at the end.
Can I say something incredibly controversial that 98% of the people listening will hate?
Please.
That's why
This
we're
game
here,
would be-
mate.
This game would be so much better if kill mails didn't exist.
Yeah, that's
I understand what you mean.
Well, elaborate. Tell me more.
Kill mails are something that people aim for. People in this game, they'll even say it in their language as well. They ask for kills. They don't ask for fights. They ask for kills. And there is also a culture of shame among all PvP groups of loss. The stigma of losing. How dare you lose? People are desperate in their groups not to lose because their membership will hate them if they are led into a battle where they will lose. It's
I agree with the stigma of loss. Don't get me wrong. Like, take there's been a few examples during this war. I think there was the Revelation? Was it Revelation? I don't know the full details behind it. That got published to a great detail, with a view to shame and stuff. There was a famous one that I always use as well. Like a little while ago, whenever Goons were away, I don't know that you guys will know better than I do, but whenever Goons were away invading Horde or whenever that was, like literally everyone in Delve were told to leave. But obviously there were a small group of people that didn't get that memo. And what I was shown a spreadsheet where what it was called the Hall of Shame, and what everyone done, like what Goons done, was that they listed every single loss mail that people lost in Delve because they were told to be at the war zone and they didn't listen. So being publicly shamed in what? How big is Goons? How big is their alliance now? Was
Well,
it 31,000?
I have kind of a double-sided thing to that. I agree with what Fanonite is saying at the end of the day, but at the same time, the thing that I do like about this game too is that there are social repercussions for loss. Right now, I would love to exist in a world where when my guys say, "Oh, we want content," right, and like to be fair, my corporation, the people in there, they want content. They do not want kills. Like we get a good fight, right? We have a cool kind of thing happen, and we win or we lose, we had a lot of fun, and as we want to get better at the game, we want to operate at a certain level, right? When other people say we want content, they want kills. They want a fight in which they're going to maybe not even have to anchor up and just blindly shoot fish in a barrel, and if you gave that to them every day, they would be more than satisfied, right?
Basic, mate. Basic.
It's part of the reason why there are not a lot of new FCs in the game. Right, you have these new FCs that start maybe in these larger blocks or maybe someplace else, but you have to learn how to do things, and that FC is gonna screw up eventually. Sorry, language. And
Sorry, mate, don't worry.
oh, I can. Okay, cool. I just wasn't sure how PG we're trying to keep this.
Go
show.
on, give it another go. Do another one.
All right, so the FC fucks something up, right, and then and then. And then people start whispering, right? Like we lost like $2 billion on that fleet. Like that Rome cost us like $2 billion. That's not good. We only killed like 5 or 6 ships. We lost everything. And then that FC pings again and he gets half the numbers, right? And now maybe he's able to work his way through, and as long as he's consistent and persistent, and eventually leads to a pedigree of winning, people might follow him. But it could very well go the other way for this person as well, right? Once you're a larger name block coalition or coalition FC, like I don't know, like PGL or something, right? You can go and whelp up like 100 Munins or 200 Munins and nobody cares. He's like, well, it's just a Munin fleet, no big deal. We'll get him next time. Everyone's like, okay, cool, because we've given him, right, exactly. So these people have the right to do those things and to lose, right? No, a lot of the newer FCs do not, and this is why you do not have a lot of newer FCs in the game. And they'll chat about this on various talk shows and be like, well, I wonder what the problem is. It's like that is literally the problem. So if kill mails did not exist, I mean, you would really just need to be focused on organizational objectives, right? It's the same thing with these Fortizar losses. Like, wow, they fed so much. Yeah, we accomplished an objective that needed to be accomplished. You fed way too much. That's not acceptable. It's like, well, it happened. So
yeah, that's
too fucking bad, right? It happened. Too fucking bad. The objective got completed. If there were no kill mails, it'd be like, well, we're just gonna, there'd be much less hype around that. Which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There'd be a lot less toxicity around loss, but at the same time, I kind of feel like that's a major part of the game at this point. So I'm on both sides of that.
Yeah.
We've also got weapons grade incompetence in the chat here. He says the game would die overnight without kill mails, and he's right. But I simultaneously believe that kill mails are poison. They have poisoned the entire player base.
Yeah.
But he's also right. Without it, it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah, it's too
All right,
late.
so
it's like
if we build
how, yeah, it's
Sorry,
like how there should be no local in nullsec, but at this point, taking it out would cause trouble.
Not necessarily, no. That completely depends on if CCP was to one day completely reinvent what PvE in nullsec is and how it works. Right now, the PvE depends on local, but I don't see why it should have to. Maybe one day they could reinvent how you do PvE, and local wouldn't matter as much.
So let's ask this question then. If we build a time machine and go back and we somehow become CCP devs, I know we're all young, so we'd probably all be like 10. But anyway, and we remove kill mails from the game before they even happen. Does EVE Online go for 20 years or 18 years or however long it's been?
That's literally impossible to say, but
right.
Whether it would grow or not, it definitely would have taken away a big source of poison in the game.
For sure.
Well, obviously focusing on what you're saying again with the kill mails, like obviously it's part of the game, but obviously it's a culture that's developed. What would, in theory, how would you be? What would you say would be a good way to try and maybe change that culture?
It's a very good question.
Because, like, obviously, with what you've discussed so far, it's not necessarily the game's fault. It's more the people within the game that have generated that culture. So, and we all know how hard that is to change a deep rooted culture within a community.
I mean, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I feel like the impact of this poison in people's minds, I feel like the impact would be lessened a lot if the groups in the game weren't so big.
Like,
I can agree with that. Also, I'll just ask this question. Is that a perpetuation of like Western values, we'll say, like winning. You can never lose. If you lose, you're a loser. Like, you know what I mean? Because it seems like other groups in the game, like FRT, for example, which are largely like Chinese based or whatever, seem to probably look at things a little bit differently, and they're much more objective driven than a lot of other, we'll say, like USTZ, like Western groups might be. Does anyone want to touch that? Or
Probably, yeah. I mean, but that's just human nature. Nobody wants to lose in life. You want to win, right?
yeah,
But we do have this kind of, we've all seen in real life, something that people beat themselves up about in real life is failure, right? And depending on it's not just mindset, right? But mindset is a big part of how you cope with failure in real life. A lot of people in the world deal far better with failure than a lot of other people in the world, right?
true,
It's
a lot
just
of
a piece of human nature, but you can tweak it. You can tweak it in your own head by training yourself to be more accepting of failure and to not give up, and to perhaps assign a higher weight to your success than the weight that you give to your failure. And the same would be great if it happened in the game.
right. I mean, like a lot of actually, almost 100% of very successful people that you can name, from wherever the United States or wherever, talk a lot about the amount of times that they failed, the amount of times that their ideas got shot down, the amount of times that their businesses went bankrupt, like, but they were persistent, and eventually,
Colonel Sanders was in his 60s before he got KFC off the ground.
exactly. Look at it now. they're putting out gaming consoles or something. Like, holy shit!
It's a gaming PC, but it has a chicken warmer in it.
Dude, that is Chad, man. That is a Chad move. I don't know. What happened to that? Because I saw around Christmas there was an ad for, not an ad, but a write up on it.
It's just,
Oh,
it's
was it?
just a
Was it?
promo.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, of course it's just a promo. I couldn't find any. I wasn't trying to buy it, but I'm just saying I couldn't find anywhere where I could buy it. So I am absolutely certain that they built one with whoever it was, Cooler Master or whoever, and it was just a promo for both companies.
Gotcha. As if gamers need more fried food in their diets, right? Like, come on.
Oh yeah, there's also that official KFC video game that came out. That's the Colonel Sanders dating simulator.
There's a different.
Oh my.
There's another one actually. I'm fairly certain that it was a proof of concept and essentially a marketing thing rather than they actually used it. But they had a VR induction to KFC that you can watch a video of it on YouTube, like a VR game with actual graphics that they made. And I swear, it's genuinely, deliberately, it's hilarious. It's extremely funny to watch. It's like a 10-minute video. Look up the KFC VR training. It looks absolutely hilarious. It seems to borrow a lot of kind of the type of humor from Portal and stuff from that. Genuinely funny.
So
Interesting.
I'm not being paid by KFC.
I have a Quest too, so I'm going to go with that. I have VR, so
because what I was about to say was, speaking of the KFC introduction simulator, is during my game design degree, I actually got the chance to play the KFC training game,
The VR one.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty hard because if you drop the chicken under the desk, you're boned.
It was funny, right? Though it was funny.
It was funny, but also way harder than you would think.
That's probably just poorly designed controls, though, given it's just a proof of concept type thing, right?
Crazy. All right. Well, KFC doing big things in the world, apparently.
I'm a big
And
fan
yeah.
of VR, by the way. Very big fan.
The Santa got me the Quest 2, and it's one of the best things I've ever had in my life, man. It is fantastic. But purely a novelty, because with the kind of infancy we're in terms of technology, it's kind of pointless. Don't go out your way unless you've got, like, I don't know, Christmas bonus or something. But it is,
Okay. Okay, so I would agree with you that every single game is basically just a proof of concept novelty for VR, even something like Boneworks. But have you played Half-Life Alyx?
mate, outrageous, mate. It's unbelievable game. I think I've played like the first minutes so far, but yes,
It is pure, absolute, perfect AAA, extreme high quality, incredible gaming. I played it on launch. I've got a Rift S, and I played it on launch. And honestly, not just because I'm a fan of VR, but honestly, it is the most affected that I have been by a computer game ever. Full stop.
I would say
quite a
that
statement.
one time when I was doing stuff, that me and a couple guys wanted to make a VR game, and I can say this now because it's public and it didn't go anywhere. But we were actually making a Starship Troopers clone in VR, which you know that one scene in Starship Troopers where they're all at the outpost and they get swarmed by bugs.
Nice.
We basically made that, and holy Jesus, like the amount of I need to find the replays somewhere during the testing we did for the showcase video, but 90% of the testing was all right. It was like, okay, Rycker, go and pick up the gun and show them that the mechanics work. I accidentally picked up the grenade and dropped it and killed myself. At least I'm pretty sure that's how that happened. I have no idea. Either way, I kept dropping stuff, and the programming lead was actually just like, Rycker, how are you this bad? Like,
Absolutely
you are literally
amazing.
like, I literally had to practice how to play this game in order to show it off to make the video. So
I would love to play a polished, finished Starship Troopers on the Outpost VR game. That would be horrific and brilliant.
Yeah, Starship Troopers was a really nice book. I wish they made a movie out of it because that would be a pretty cool movie.
Very good.
you're trolling, right?
What?
You're
What?
trolling.
What do you mean?
No, I'm not going to fall for the bait. I'm not falling for it.
Yeah, you nearly there. So, obviously, the glaring subject over the weekend, there are now 6 less Keepstars in the game. What are your thoughts so far?
All of the ones in Delve? It
Yes.
doesn't matter. The only one that's going to matter is 1DQ. Nobody
Which one
gives
did you
tops.
Keepstar?
Don't they have
What
like
is it
the
those-
one over the gate, the one that's always been over the gate. You know the one.
Okay, the one.
That's not even their staging Keepstar. The gate Keepstar is
Is it
their
not?
staging.
Wow.
the one and only
Yeah.
Keepstar.
The collective 1DQ Keepstar brackets S.
I wasn't around when Keepstars came out, but for those of you guys in here who were around, did you ever expect it to get to a point where someone would ask, was that the last Keepstar kill of the day? As if that's
Yes.
not an ordinary
Yes.
day.
Is that
Yeah, from the moment that CCP revealed the citadels that they were working on, from the moment they revealed what was coming, the question across the entire game was, are these, how are you going to stop these from proliferating? And CCP said that they weren't concerned that they would proliferate, and the players were like, okay, but how aren't they going to proliferate? And here we are.
Didn't they ask the same thing about Titans?
Well, they're in a much different mode back then, right? This was build cities in the sky, build your dreams, sandcastles everywhere. We love everything, and that was Seagull, right? Which was a very positive message. It was like, here's a bunch of ice cream guys, go crazy, and here's a bunch of free minerals. We're gonna give you a bunch of SP that you can inject, and this Rorqual, which will just print ISK for you. So basically, you just print more ISK, buy more SP, and let's go.
And here's a structure that builds super capital ships faster and more efficiently. Go nuts.
Exactly, right? And it's like, what could go wrong?
And here's one you can dock them in.
Right, and it's like,
well, at the same time,
sounds like a bad idea, CCP. They're like, it's gonna be great, guys. It's gonna be great. So like, okay, cool. And then honestly, I could argue and say that the game is in a perfect state, and that the big fights that we get are going to be awesome for recruitment. Unfortunately, it just seems like CCP disagrees with that. It seems like a lot of leadership in the game disagree with that. It seems like a lot of players in the game disagree with that.
These fights are brilliant for recruitment, but they are also extremely good at making people resign after they've been recruited.
Yeah,
that's true.
The current, from my experience, and at the moment, I've moved to be a kind of brainless line member at the moment. But the meta ongoing at the moment with the volleying off the field, that doesn't make for experience, in my opinion. Simply your ship being deleted from the field without you having any time to counteract or anything like that. Well, it's not that you don't have any time. You have a very small amount of time to react to that.
Well, that's
the ADC is pretty good at countering that, because actually it was in a fight last night with it was basically a joint Pappy fleet, and we were fighting. It was our mutants versus Imperium mutants, and ProGod said, "Okay, guys, I'm going to start calling your names. The minute I call your names, broadcast and activate your ADC." All of a sudden, right after he said it, okay, cool. I was literally primary last fleet. There's no way it's going to happen again. All of a sudden, I hear ProGod shout, "Rycker 514, ADC and broadcast." And just for a minute there, I stopped, and the entire enemy fleet just lit me up. My shield went to 50%. I hit that ADC and just tanked their entire fleet for a good, I want to say, 3 minutes. And it was the scariest. Well, it wasn't the scariest, but I was definitely clenching.
This is not a super capital problem, though, right? This is an N+1 issue and an empire building issue, and actually a tie-dye issue too. If there was no tie-dye, if the game was able to run, magically without tie-dye, I think that the fights that go on in nullsec would have to be very different, much more strategic, and I think that a smaller force of subcaps might be able to actually overtake a slightly, a bigger force of subcaps. But as it is right now with tie-dye, it's my group is big enough to alpha your ships, your group is big enough to alpha my ships. Let's trade until one of us, can't alpha your ships anymore, and then that's basically where we're at with the game, right?
Yeah,
somebody asked me something that was they were oblivious to the impact of what they were asking me. They said to me, "Hey, Fran, you need to ask CCP to make another Tech 2 battleship that is for Lynx." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because our command ships, even our damnations, just get volleyed off the field." And I said, "Right, first of all, there already is a ship you can use if you want more, and it's called a carrier. You can put Lynx on a carrier." And he's like, "Yeah, but the Lynx aren't as strong." And I was like, "Yes, that's right." And just like the obliviousness of the question. Something that CCP did about 5 years ago at the same time as Citadels is they put a lot of tools into the game to allow ships to function in much larger fights. They gave all of these hit points to capitals and super capitals, and they invented force auxiliaries which had cap boosters so they could negate subcap newts and things like this. The last thing that CCP needs to do is give any more tools to help people function in giga fights.
It's like he's admitted, this is actually really funny, right? Because he's admitted that there's an issue. He's found a problem, right?
Mhm.
But he's like, well, the way around this problem is to make it way worse. Like that's essentially what he's.
Is to keep power creep.
Like let's perpetuate it, even more, right? Like so that these big blobs can't alpha my link ship. And it's like, dude, come on. Like you think that's the solution to your problem?
Like,
Well,
if you want to tag your links,
actuality-
why not just drop an apostle?
Well,
the thing too is that even if CCP were to make a Tech 2 battleship for links, like in those high tie-dye fights, like it's really easy to just multi-box multiple characters and have multiple N+1s to where, all right, they have more EHP. Well, I'm just going to spin up another tune and then bam, add them to the fleet. And now instead of pushing one button every 5 minutes, I'm pushing 2 buttons every 5 minutes.
Just have three backups of links in your fleet, and you're probably by the end of the fight gonna have, I mean, unless your entire fleet gets whelped, you're probably gonna have one set of links of each kind that stay, right? So just do that. Like let's just perpetuate N+1 forever. Like that's really the solution to his problem would be that, right? Let's work in the system that we have and just add to it that way. We don't have to create new tools that make
The
things
problem-
even worse. Like
Anybody who looks at the current massive fights and thinks that the problem is that some things can't survive long enough.
exactly.
No. The problem is you're too big. That's the problem.
Yes. No, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
my point I'm trying to make is, so we create these things that are going to survive the current numbers that we have now. Like, what's going to end up happening is eventually that only encourages like more growth from these entities, right?
It's the same every time I see anybody from a gigantic fight complaining about the performance of the server. No. The server isn't the. If somebody at CCP got a time machine, went 10 years into the future and brought back a Xeon from 10 years in the future, you would just bring enough people to bring it to its knees again.
Well, that was the server has a cap limit, a secret cap limit that CCP isn't talking about, right? I love, no, I know, but we talked about it on TTT. I fucking love that argument because I'm like, yeah, you're right. There is a physical limit to what computing processors can do in the modern age, and trying to cram 15,000 people into a server node is probably where you guys have gone wrong. All right, like there is a cap. It's not CCP's fault. It's literally like this is just how good technology has come. Right?
Yeah.
You're trying to do things that are not natural with the laws of physics I guess our technology and the laws of physics as they are now. So like let's maybe dial it back, maybe break up into some smaller groups and have some good fights. Like that's what I love about low sec fights is that we're gonna lose a whole bunch of ISK and it's gonna take like maybe an hour, maybe two at the most with some tie-dye maybe, but not an incredible amount. And really, the tie-dye is only that bad because the server nodes are not reinforced at all. Like they're kind of shit, right? But at the same time, it's like I can go for a fight. We can lose or kill 500 bill, and I can have lunch after, right? It's not a 6-hour like kill fest where at the end of it we've maybe killed 100 bill, or maybe killed 50 bill, or maybe killed.
That's like that was one of the interesting things. Like I was reading it, like obviously it was a big subject with the whole M2, but as you said, like cramming all those people into such a small space was just ludicrous. But I discovered, obviously, with the age of the game and the topology of how the server is all set up, I didn't know this. That actually, the code that was developed over time, because it is that old now, it is designed to capitalize on the power of just one core. So you can have your Ryzen 7s or your i9s, and it means absolutely fuck all because the code cannot harness that power. And
it's
like,
not just that. It's not just that. CCP has, to be fair, in the last 10 years, done huge amounts of work removing aspects of the game from what's called the monolith and making it so that it can be processed separately. But there's only so much they can do. There is no other game on this planet that can handle this level of complex fighting with these number of people than EVE Online. So to give them credit, they are world leading in this in what they have accomplished here.
Right.
Yeah,
If they had infinite funds and just like rewrote the entire game and then cloned everybody and put it on there, it would probably perform. It would definitely perform better for sure. But would you be able to have 15,000 people on a node? I don't know. Probably not.
Do you remember the work that they did with Hadeon, a games company that was building, what was their engine called? They built
the code thing, yeah.
Yeah, and they had a visualization of exactly what this engine does to get all these people, and essentially it just builds a seemingly unlimited number of tiny dynamic grids where all the projectiles go from one grid to another, and essentially each grid can be processed as a separate thread across a cluster of systems.
Nice.
And yeah, neat, but that's a completely different game to what EVE Online is.
Like,
Right.
there's that, but the thing that frustrates me a lot is that, as you said, like, they're world leading in a sense that, like, what we are seeing in terms of like tie-dye, like having this many people on one single server shouldn't really be possible. So the fact that the innovation with tie-dye and so on, like, they are achieving more than what should be possible in the first place. So I see all these comments saying get a better servers or build oh, that's nonsense. It's like, you need to
CCP
understand.
already gets Intel confidential processors in the past, by the way.
What?
Like they already get like in the past, CCP has acquired Intel confidential, like non sort of regular retail or potentially not quite yet released processors
Yeah,
from Intel for this, so they're already doing better than the hardware available anyway.
yeah, I know that. Like, I remember when they first came up with the whole concept of tie dye. It's military grade hardware that they actually use, because no, like mainstream stuff can actually cope with the kind of computing power that goes on.
I mean, Eve is real, and they're actually slowing down time, dude. I know there's probably a lot of tech guys, IT guys who are, in channel like pulling their hair out because they're saying there's better ways and we can make this work better and we can optimize it. And it's like, sure, you can, but can you create a game that'll run 20 years organically and have it all work the way it's working currently? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like you can, I mean, I'm sure you can be the architect and get a whole bunch of funding for this massive multi-online kind of thing where you can have mass amounts of dudes on one server is going to be amazing. And like, does that even take off? Like, who knows, right? Like, CCP didn't start off thinking, oh, we're just going to have massive online battles. It's going to be great. They wanted to create this, or like ecosystem that kind of worked a little bit and that would, last long into the future, and it has, right? So what they set out to accomplish, they've kind of achieved as far as that is concerned, right? The thing is though, it's like, yeah, we could probably design this from the ground up and make it better. It's like, but how much funding is someone going to give that? And for what? For the amount of people who log into this game currently? I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough sell.
And to me, the way that Pappy is going to deal with that limitation of cramming it so many people into 1DQ seems kind of obvious.
Right. Well, that limitation was seen in like X47, right? Like when NC Dot and all the, and PL and stuff like that, when PanFam were defending the X47 Keepstar, for example, right? The people who loaded grid first, which they allowed the goons to pick a side on the Keepstar so that they can then move or have their Titans jump in to be within range of that blob, right? Because if you, like, for example, if you were just to on dock your Titans and they could, first they could just pick a side where the least amount of your Titans are going to be able to hit them, right? So because that's the case, they allowed the goons to load server first. The goons had a much better time, I think, than PanFan did, doing that. So I mean, that was kind of an interesting thing. And then to see that whole thing played out again, where the goons defensively this time loaded grid first, and then they jumped into them and things didn't work the way that they wanted.
By
It's pretty interesting.
defensively loaded grid first, do you mean showed up several hours ahead of time?
Yes, exactly. Well, the other side couldn't get their shit together. Oh yeah,
that's
for
a
sure.
nicer way
Yeah,
to say
like,
it than this horrible truth about EVE Online.
My guess is that once the 1DQ iHub goes down eventually, Pappy will. It seems like if I was making the decisions, I'd try to anchor a Keepstar in 1DQ so that Pappy wouldn't have to jump into 1DQ.
Okay, good luck anchoring one to begin the fight.
I'll look forward to the day that happens. That'll be fun.
But in my opinion, though, I don't think it's like, I think the server could have held the numbers that were trying to be committed at the time in the second M2 tech fight. Obviously, in the first one, it was a little bit more of an organic situation where there was like a mutual escalation, and they kind of were both loading the server kind of at the same time on each side as they both escalated. Right, it was a much better fight than obviously the second one. I think a lot depends on how you load the server in EVE Online, and that's
Yeah.
just a little sneaky suspicion that I have. I have like no IT or technical knowledge really, so it just from experience, I would say like trying to just jump in like 6,000 dudes all at once, probably
Yeah.
not a great idea, because it just seemed like the server was perpetually trying to catch up and just never caught up, right? And then that resulted in obviously the turkey shoot.
Yeah, the good thing is as well, obviously going back on this weekend, obviously with the 6 Keepstars getting burned, you've seen a change in the way fleets approach this sort of subject now as well. You've seen I don't know own any Titans or super carriers, neither do I have any interest in doing so. So a lot of the subcap fleets, instead of sitting in system causing all tie dye and so on, a lot of fleets are sitting outside and waiting until maybe the Keepstar is like 10%, and then going in, like hitting it a few shots and then leaving again. So it's like a positive in terms of the M2 fight is that lessons have been learned. You know what I mean? To avoid creating like the massive tie dye that we had to deal with before, because yeah, that wasn't good. And obviously, as you said, the turkey shoot, we don't want it in. No one wants that again. That was not good.
What's
That
funny
was
was I was actually on that. I was on that server even just before the on that in that system before the goons even really started forming hard, because I was going to get my corp over and we were just going to basically like chill it and watch it and then try to horn some stuff and the Keepstar. That was the plan, right? But I wanted to see it because I knew it was going to probably be a really big fight. And then when I saw that there were 5,000 people in system before Pappy jumped in anything significant, I was like, oh, don't worry guys, it's not going to even happen. Like my corp guys were burning and I told them that they probably shouldn't, because nothing's gonna it's probably not gonna happen. And then it turns out, well, it did, and I was like, holy shit, this is gonna be bad. And it was. Right. So my ult that was in system already was absolutely fine. I was able to do anything I wanted. Now Loki jumping into system after the Pappy forces jumped in took about an hour to get into system.
See, that's not good for anyone. So that sort of time, and no, that was pretty horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And obviously, those kinds of fights and those kinds of losses are definitely not good for the game. I mean, I guess you could argue cap proliferation, screw them all, and whatever. But it's just not that, right? It's not good gameplay.
Obviously, touching on the whole capital stuff, like the industry changes. Rycker, we were noting down. Rycker has a dream of owning an avatar, according to him. But that's probably not going to happen now. Rycker, what are your thoughts?
Rycker, I'll sell one to you, buddy. 250 bill. 250
It's
bill,
gonna
special
happen.
price just for you.
All right, I will mine in high sec for however long it takes.
But the what are your
If you hate yourself, then do what you want, mate.
the
Hey,
the impact?
You know what? I hate myself just enough to do it during the war, because let's be real, during this war, like, it's not that I don't have space to go in Radin. It's just like, do I really want to jump clone all my stuff over only to get a hype ping and then immediately death clone back? So
Rycker.
I've definitely had to figure out different ways to go and make this, which actually, like, for all the shit everyone gives it, high sec mining while also playing a game like Stellaris or COD is pretty chill.
So Rycker,
Although the money you make is almost non-existent.
if you look really hard around T5Z, you might find some people who might give you a Titan at fire sale prices right now. It might be the best shot that
The
you have.
fire sale price of a Titan right now after the industry announcement.
I don't know. I picked mine
Higher
up
than it
before
was.
that. I picked mine up before that. Around low sec, non-existent. There are no. I don't believe there are any contracts up for Titans anymore. Those all got bought up pretty quick. But I don't know. Around Goonswarm Federation space, it might be a couple Titans you can pick up on a deal. I don't know what that's going to look like for Rycker, but it's probably not going to be 250 bills. So there's that.
Currently seeing three avatars up on public contract starting at 145 billion.
Right. Okay. So they're twice what they were probably listed at a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little too blue for my blood.
just rigged. That's not fitted.
Oof, dude, oof. What's really interesting, like, and I talked about this on TTT, is like ever since I've been playing this game, there has always been, every time industrial changes have been made, okay, there is a sky is falling mentality. The end of times is coming. We
The
can't
sky is
sustain
falling.
this.
The sky is falling. It's just it's a rubbish sky. So let's see what the new one is.
World is coming to an
Exactly. And I mean, at some point, like we're gonna have to expect that we're still in a scarcity phase, as CCP calls it. We're gonna have to assume eventually there will be more of a like bountiful phase and less of
There
a
is a
scarcity phase.
redistribution phase to come, but on the CSM, we don't know what that looks like or when it's scheduled for.
Right. But now here's another question, and maybe you can answer this because you're on the CSM, maybe. So this scarcity phase, do you think that this is exactly what we wanted if you're CCP, or do you think that the lack of care bearing going on right now across pretty much the entire game except for a few regions is accentuating all of this?
Something that CCP has told us, but not told us the figures. They've told us that something that does guide them is that obviously they know how much stuff people are hoarding.
Sure.
We don't know how much stuff we don't know on the CSM. We don't know how much stuff people are hoarding. We don't know what CCP is, what level they're waiting for it to go down to. But we do know that existing stuff is a data point that they are using to judge whether they're doing scarcity right. But
Okay,
I don't know what scarcity right looks like either.
But here's the thing: these stockpiles, are they just gonna are they somehow just gonna be volunteered? Like the people who have the stockpiles in a large null block, for example, right? Are they just gonna give it up to their alliance because, well, we need it right now, or are they gonna sell it at a profit? Because what's to stop them from just continuously hoarding more, right? And I give you a good example. I'm one of those people who I'm a really, really, really messy person apparently in game, and I have stuff everywhere, right? From 8 years of playing the game, deployments everywhere. I have hundreds of billions of ISK just in ships that I've been slowly dumping over the last couple of weeks because it's been very profitable to do so, right? So at the end of this, you've converted maybe would have been 200 bill worth of ships to now maybe like 400 bill worth of ships. Now I have 400 bill in my wallet. What am I going to do? I'm probably going to go buy a bunch of other shit. So explain to me where the stockpiles reducing is actually a good thing, or an effective thing. Like the people who have things now will just continue to have things, correct? Like I'm not just gonna go broke because things are expensive. I'm just gonna have more than everybody else, and the ISK value is not really going to change at the end of the day. I mean, maybe with these changes, sure, the ISK thing is affected to a degree, right? The ISK versus mineral price, but right now, it's only acting in my advantage to have things and to sell them. So I'm selling them. And then eventually, I'm just gonna have a whole bunch of ISK. Cool. So that if the value of ISK doesn't just completely drop, I'm good, right? Or I can buy literally whatever is going to, I think, ferry me through these changes and retain its value. So that's all I have to do. And now CCP's made me an incredible amount of ISK. So thank you very much. I don't really understand how they think that the rich are just not going to be richer at the end of this. The poor are certainly going to be poorer. I mean,
I gotta say first of all that if you feel that that this is an attempt to address the gap between the rich and the poor, this is not. None of this is this is not an attempt to help the poor and take from the rich to give to the poor. This isn't a change to address that gap at all. That's not what it's about at all. This is about the mineral economy of the game and what it allows people to do with those huge amounts of minerals. This is nothing to do with the rich getting richer or the poor getting poorer or any other which way round.
Right, but another word for dude with stockpiles is he's rich. He's space rich. Whether it's liquid or it's not liquid, right?
Oh,
he's rich, so he's going to continue to be rich no matter what. He'll just buy other new minerals. It's not going to change anything. I guess it changes everyone else's ability to purchase those said capitals. So it does address capital proliferation. I just wish they'd stop talking about stockpiles, because the people with the stockpiles are going to continue to stockpile. If anything, I'm only stockpiling more at this point.
Now, I don't know. Obviously, this can't give any kind of reassurance whatsoever because we don't know what these numbers are, and if we did know what it was, I wouldn't be able to tell you anyway.
Right.
The gist I got from what they were telling me, the way I feel about what they told me, I think that they feel that there are unimaginably large stockpiles, larger than any of us would normally think of when we thought of somebody mega rich. Now, the only people who could probably tell you would be the people at the top of each coalition, but they wouldn't tell you for strategic reasons anything about their stockpiles whatsoever. Those are the only people who could tell you, and they won't.
Can I just put a disclaimer in? I understand that 400 bill in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of ISK at all. So it was funny, right? I'm like, oh, I'm rich, but I mean, at the same time, it's like I just continue to invest that ISK though. But they literally made me an incredible amount of ISK compared to what I had. Like I didn't do any work for this, right? At all. So great, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's
relative.
an issue.
It's relative. It's the same. It gets
For
you
sure.
the same amount of gear that you sold. So, you've gained ISK. The number of your amount of ISK has gone up, but what you could purchase for it is exactly the same as before you increased that number.
Right. So I can just invest in the minerals and stockpile and continue to like the stockpile. That's exactly my point. Is that it hasn't really affected the stockpiles. It has affected cap proliferation, and
none of us here know about how much the stockpiles have been affected. None of us know.
Well, but my point is it's going to be 0%. Like at the end of the day, you're not really affecting change on the individuals who have the stockpiles. Maybe a specific mineral stockpile will get depleted, but then you can just take that ISK and put into the new, I don't know, gas that we need to accrue to continue to make these things. Like that individual is still going to have the resources available to have plenty, right? It's not like it's going to reduce anything at the end of the day, unless you significantly hit the power of ISK, right? If the power of ISK went down, I mean, I guess to some extent you could, I don't know. In this analogy, do we feel like the power of ISK has gone down since before?
If inflation continued.
Well,
right.
Like on one occasion, Hilmar or CCP Hilmar was interviewed, and he was quoted in saying that there is literally too much ISK in the game, or people are too rich.
Right.
And in terms of obviously the changes, I can only speculate. Perhaps Phantom maybe know better than I do, but with the changes we're seeing now, with the industry changes, like it is speculated what an avatar is going to be worth, like 200 billion to make. So obviously with those changes impacting the game, that will obviously take a lot of. It will cause people to spend more. Less, it's I mean, it's going to have that collateral effect, and removing making people less rich, essentially.
Right, but what you need to do then is hope that the amount of loss remains constant or somewhat tenable, and then make salvaging nearly impossible and make loot drops like garbage, and then you have an ISK like sink, right? Like then you're actually accomplishing something. But now it's like, well, do I want to jump my avatar in to this? Because if I lose it, I'm never getting another one. Like,
well, that's touching on what we were saying earlier.
Okay. If you don't use your avatar for combat, then that avatar essentially doesn't exist in the combat world.
Yeah,
so an avatar has been removed from the game.
Right, I suppose.
Like on the
well, there's always potential for combat, but never actual combat, right?
Obviously, that touches on what we were saying earlier as well, with the inflation and the impact that these industry changes are going to make. Do like null blocks or big alliances and anything like that want to throw so many ships at a fight anymore, because the cost of everything is going to go up, and with the changes that have been made to the rest of the game, it's going to be a little more difficult to actually make ISK as well. So, like, I feel, and again, this is purely going on my educated guess, I feel that obviously the long-term effect will completely change the game, but this is not going to happen next week. This is going to be 6 months down the line. There's going to be a complete change in meta and everything as a result of these industry changes, I think. But
right.
What do you guys think?
I think one way or the other, right? One way or the other, PvP is going to become a lot scarcer after this war. because everyone's
No,
gonna
no,
have
no. People are going to use smaller, cheaper ships for it.
well, that's where I'm going to, right? So the blocks themselves are probably going to have to go lick their wounds and build things and mine and do all that stuff, right? That what you're probably going to see, and this is the only silver lining that I see, is that you might, because of that lack of content, get T1 like roams happening again, like what used to happen in the game.
What will encourage people to roam about these changes?
I would say that the null block operations are probably going to be reduced a little bit. I don't think we're going to be seeing like one fleet every day from a large null block. Probably. I mean, maybe we will. I don't think so. And I think that people are going to want a PvP at some point. And if they want a PvP, then maybe an FC that says, "Hey, I'm going to go on a roam. You want to come?" And it's like, we've been starving for content for a week. Absolutely, I'm going to go on this roam, right? So that's hopefully what we get out of this. That's just my kind of thinking on it. And I could be completely wrong, but it's going to be probably in cheaper ships, and I don't really see null blocks operating on the same frivolous level as before. Like, definitely there will still be, uh, using capital ships and doing things, but in more meaningful ways, right? Dreads are no longer throwaway ships. Like, carriers are no longer necessarily throwaway ships. So you're probably going to get a lot less of that stuff, and then a lot more of these, smaller, like just roaming things. Like, we need content kind of roams, or we need content fleets, and whatever that looks like is what it's going to be. I don't know. Like, I hope so. Anyway, like that's probably the only silver line that's going to come out of this, for a somebody who likes PvP content.
What I hope is that if the stakes are lowered, I'm hoping that people will become more accepting of loss.
But do you believe what I was saying in terms of making everything more expensive? Do you believe that's part of what CCP were aiming for? Is that just a side product
The
of what they're doing?
important thing that they're doing is that they are, to a partial extent, is they are separating capitals and supercaps from subcaps in terms of the materials required. It's not just, here are the basic minerals, I can build battleships or a Nyx with them, right? It's by splitting apart capitals from subcapitals with the materials needed, they can better tweak the build materials to affect one particular type of ship.
I see what you mean now. As I said, I'm like
It
complete
also
amateur.
creates a bottleneck, but I don't know if it will necessarily be a bottleneck or how big the bottleneck will be, because we haven't had the redistribution where we have the new layout of where materials are and in what quantities. Now, something that a lot of people are forgetting with these upcoming industry changes is that they look at the price of something and they assume that all of these materials will be the same price that they are now once the redistribution happens.
Right.
Redistribution may make some cheap materials more expensive. It may make some expensive ones cheaper. There might be much higher volumes of something available than there were before. Or CCP might make it so everything gets more expensive, or they might make it so everything gets cheaper. We don't know what redistribution will look like. So the projections as to what the pricing of things will be in the future is all complete bollocks at the moment.
Yeah.
Right, which is why I find it hilarious that everyone is, crying that the sky is falling.
It's like, I think it will definitely be a good change because I agree with the idea that everyone is way too rich. Everyone has way too much risk. So taking it from a lot of people would be definitely be a good thing. But we can only guess at this stage, I suppose.
I mean, for all we know, there might be a bottleneck in, there might be a wormhole gas or something or whatever material that goes into Titan production, for instance, where there's only 3 Titans worth of these materials spawning in the whole galaxy every day.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Exactly. Like, one question I did have, and I doubt you're going to be able to give me any more insight. It was pointed out to me, and give me a bit of an idea. Like, my preferred play style is very much blupsing and covert and all that stuff, which has very much died as a result of the changes. But I did notice a quote, and I knew Intel Tool, this is a quote from the notes, a new Intel Tool is also coming to New Eden in the next months. in the next months. One that will offer novel defences against covert operations in New Eden. Can you give us a little more insight as to what that will be, or are we looking at some upset here?
We've seen several different concepts over, a few months for this here. I don't know what's going to make it, and as you say, I can't tell you what any of those concepts are, or even really hint at them. But it's still under some discussion with the CSM. I don't know if it's coming a month from now, or if it's coming 6 months from now, or whether they eventually decide to give up on it or what. But when it does get announced one day, I'd love to come and talk about it and tell you, assuming it goes in one of the forms I've seen, exactly which parts seem very fair and which parts I hate. But yeah,
I've got a bad feeling about it personally, but also like
I don't. Okay, I'll tell you so. I don't have a particularly bad feeling about it from the concepts we've seen.
Oh.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, if anybody watching, knows what I do, then I am very, very concerned about PvP. It's why I'm here. And I'm not too worried about its impact on PvP and safety.
Good.
Yet.
That makes me feel a bit better now. That is makes me feel a bit better. Also, it's has CCP spoken much about the POS code or POS trash? Obviously, they mentioned this like 2 years ago that has been removed, but they've stayed very quiet about that.
I mean, here's the thing now. What does a POS do? What does a POS do right now in 2021?
It stores a Bridge Titan or a wormhole eviction.
All a POS is today in 2021 is a shield that can only be anchored on a moon, right?
I'm guessing by the way you're saying that is very much low on their development list. I'm guessing.
I very much feel that I don't have a definite answer from CCP, but I do very much feel it's low on the list of priorities. And to be honest, should we even care given what it's used for now compared to what all of the roles it filled in the past? I mean, it's a joke that POS code is tied into every other thing in the game, but it, from what I can tell, it doesn't seem to be causing CCP many actual headaches in their development in the game, and I guess that's why it's low priority to actually finally remove.
Well, there were, counting on what you're saying, there were occasions when I was the FC of Bombers Bar, there was a lot of times where we would one of the hunters would find a super or a carrier or whatever, and then the next thing I would hear would be they're hiding in a POS. So obviously that's still utilised to a certain degree. That's obviously utilised to get safe. So it's still causing trouble for people within the game.
They can log off unsafely in it, and it doesn't matter if they've got a weapons timer as well. So that's that's what it does over a Citadel.
Yeah, so it's still making an impact, but no, it's fair enough. Like on a bigger scale of things, I can understand it's very much low on the priority. But I think what's his name again? CCP Burger. He was saying that how he's going to have a Viking funeral whenever he gets rid of the postcode. But anyway,
I hope they make a video when they do that, because I do honestly believe he would actually get some CCP staffers and they would gladly give it a Viking funeral. I think that would genuinely happen.
I hope so, man. I look forward to it.
I wonder, do you need a permit in Iceland to burn a boat on water?
Everybody's busy looking at the volcano. They can just do it somewhere else.
There
Nobody
you go.
will know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, perfect.
They can just burn a boat in a volcano.
There won't be any evidence.
For sure, man. What else was there? There was a couple other subjects. Rycker.
So,
Yeah.
Phantomite,
Yeah.
Hmm.
you're one of the people. You're a smaller low sec group that doesn't really do much besides PvP. So, do you have any concerns that the industry changes will make it harder for your guys to sustain your playstyle?
Yeah, it'll make it harder to sustain our playstyles, but at the same time, it puts exactly the same restrictions on anybody that we would be fighting. Difference is, if we wanted to try and fight somebody much larger, then we've grown a little bit recently. Anybody notably larger than us probably has those personal income streams from Rorquals and things that essentially we just can't sustain unless we made a big coalition about it, which we have absolutely no intent of lowering ourselves to. So yeah, it's going to hurt it a bit, but if other people will have to put the same monetary value on the line as us if they want to use a dread and we want to use a dread.
Do you think you'll have more trouble punching up if you want to use dreads to even the playing field against big blobs, or if you try doing that?
I wish that we had lots of opportunities where I could tell you honestly that we do get the opportunity to even try and punch up by using dreads, but it's actually very rare that we would punch up using dreads. It looks cool when we video it and put a video out where we did it, but that barely ever happens, because if we're gonna attack, if we're gonna fight anybody where we have to punch up, then they are typically in a position where they could just punch up as well and just drop 2 dreads on our 1 dread, So we don't actually even get to do that anymore these days. Sad, I know.
Yeah,
Very
like
sad.
honestly, one of the reasons why I've stayed in Horde is because while your playstyle is more of what I would like to be doing most of the time, I just can't afford it right now, and Horde has allowed me to build up a decent amount of ISK. So if I ever do decide to leave, I'll have built up a stream to be able to afford it at that point.
And for official fleet ops and stuff, you have a measure of SRP as well,
Yep.
which we don't really have. We've got some SRP on and off, but we don't have anything official, and it's not very substantial. EVE
So
Online
one
2021.
So one thing we actually haven't talked about recently, which is kind of what I had planned for the show, but then Phantomite came on, was the war. So just some. I mean, this is honestly probably a little bit more interesting than some of the war stuff we have. But what is interesting is the amount of Keepstars that have died in the past 2 weeks. Now, I'm unaware of any legacy Keepstars dying. There was one Keepstar, and I believe it was UQ that actually in it was trying to attack and hit the timer, but unlike Goons, Pappy will test actually went and defended it rather successfully to where they actually won the armor timer. So for anyone thinking that you can't defend a Keepstar under a jammer, I mean, Test did it. Now that I actually have the numbers pulled up, if I quickly count.
If you're looking for a prepared stream, you're at the wrong place, lads.
So 13 Keepstars, according to Zkill, have died in the past 2 weeks. All of them Imperium. And this was roughly like right when they actually changed their vulnerability timer to EU to help better defend it. Pappy's weak spot was our EU, as we didn't have a lot of our USTs, EFCs that were really trying to win this war. But EU really stepped up and has been putting the hurt on Goons and blowing up their Keepstars. What do you guys think about that?
32 in total now.
I'm sorry.
Total, since the war started, it's now 32 Keepstars dead.
Oh, geez, yeah. I know at least 5 of those are Pappy. So yeah. I guess thoughts on that?
Seems like there was a lot of Keepstar proliferation as well, right? I guess.
Oh yeah, no. The amount of Keepstars in Delve was a little bit ridiculous, but
So how many did you say? 32?
32.
32.
It was
That's
published. It was published on the Alliance pings. It was 32 dead Imperium Keepstars, 28 kill mails. 4 of them didn't show up on Z-Kill. Well, no, I tell a lie. Sorry, 1 was stolen. 1 didn't have a kill mail at all.
Yeah, one was unanchored and then Horde grabbed, or
I stole it.
Horde killed the freighter that picked it up. Another was unanchored and then NC and PL grabbed it before the Imperium could.
That was funny. I remember that fleet actually. That was, we all sat quietly, and it's one of the downsides to being a line member is you're not told anything as to what's going on. And we sat quietly for like 10-15 minutes, and then the FC gave us a storyline.
Yeah.
And the jump freighter dropped in and took the Keepstar and left again. So,
Yeah, like Loki, you remember what happened to the 9UY Keepstar? That happened in Delve twice in the span of week, that same thing.
I see. I mean, yeah, that's lots. I mean, I don't know. I'd probably find it less like, or more exciting if we hadn't like, I was in PanFam when they rolled over like Darkness, right? And like, I'm pretty sure we killed 11 or something, like all uncontested. Like basically they just gave up after Frat joined the fight against GOTG, and then we just kind of nuked like a whole bunch of them. So I mean, yeah, it sucks. I mean, maybe Keepstar should have been like way more expensive. There might have been less of them. That being said, maybe not. Maybe, you know, with the industrialization of nullsec and the empire building mechanics as they were with the oracles and all that, maybe it doesn't really matter how much they cost. Maybe we would have had way too many of them regardless, but certainly seems like they might need to be bumped up in price a little bit. Or, you know, everyone's ISK generation goes down substantially, which I guess is kind of like what we're trying to do here.
I disagree. I think that it should be limited to 1 per constellation.
I mean, yeah,
make some choices.
That would
There are plenty of questions like, oh, how would you enforce that? How would you stop people gaming it? Blah 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 blah. But these are things that could be discussed. But it's not going to happen because people like the sky the way it is. You know, they can't see the better world that could be.
I mean,
Is that-
1 per constellation would make it very, very strategic to actually have to attack somebody now, right? I don't know if it would even be. I mean, you'd have to basically just anchor forts and have everyone coffin their supers for like some kind of giant invasion in the future. That would make things much more interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not sure that a strict limit, but I'd be more interested in something like the fuel cost increasing with additional structures concentrated in the same area. Like, how many of you guys have played Stellaris?
I played it in beta. If it's still in beta, then I guess I played it like a year ago, maybe.
Yeah, like uh, uh, I've played it basically since the beginning, and while most of the game mechanics have been reworked heavily since it came out, it's always had various ways of implementing the cost of doing stuff like new technologies. For example, it increases with the bigger you get. So even if there's no strict limit to how big you can get. So there's a soft limit to going above a certain size might not be practical, but they don't prevent you from doing it. And I kind of think that's how they should do it. in Eve rather than just say only one per constellation.
Right. I mean, I kind of see the dynamic bounty changes as kind of a diminishing returns on people in that system, which is I think a step in the right direction as long as it's gonna be worth actually doing it. Um, right now, I don't think the answer to the dynamic bounty system is let's break up into smaller groups, though, right? It would be great if there were diminishing returns, like you're saying, on things like that. Where, I mean, in my opinion, obviously not in a lot of people's opinions, but in my opinion, if there were diminishing returns on the size of your actual groups, but at that point too, like maybe structures would make more sense because you could just have more people in like a group of much smaller alliances, right? And then that would kind of game it that way. Or maybe there should be diminishing returns of what a region can actually produce, and like that would be your kind of counter to n+1 a little bit at least.
Yeah, and I've had an idea that just saying it will make all the alliance logistics people who, even the ones who aren't listening, they'll just instinctively hate me for saying it. Uh, but what would happen if instead of having the industry index cost be a straight up increase to the ISK cost of industry jobs, just be uh, increasing the fuel requirements of the industry structures based on how many people are using them?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm the wrong person to ask. Like my opinions or whatever, but I mean, Phantomite would probably have a much better handle on this, being a CSM member. And
I'm just hugely biased. I just hate everything that Citadels have done to this game. I hate the unlimited nature of where you can place them and how many. I hate the defenses they can use with just one guy sitting in it, just harassing an entire fleet. I hate that Citadels can solo caps, meaning that structure bashing is a role that's been taken away from Dreads. I hate tethering. I just hate everything about the way Citadels are designed. So I'm a terrible person to really ask.
There was,
Yeah.
I think we're probably both in the same boat there, honestly.
Yeah, I
agree.
got my first capital alt back in December, and I've gotten it to press my siege button a total of 3 times because I can't bash structures with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is obviously, I don't know. I like the large block kind of gameplay in the game to an extent. I like the idea of it. I like the concept of it. It's just I feel like never having a cap on basically how large you can get, except for what the server can actually limit or handle, rather, what the server can handle is probably a pretty big issue, right? Like, I really do like the fact that there are larger groups and smaller groups. I just really like it if maybe there were a little bit more incentives for smaller groups to exist, or it became just less difficult for smaller groups to exist, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I don't know how you make that possible, though. I mean, without it just being completely gamed, because that's what everyone does anyway. But I don't know. It's interesting.
So before we wrap up, there were actually two battles that I wanted to cover. These battles were fought uh, within the last week. There was one that was fought in YQX, which was yesterday, um, which is the basic gist of the fight. Or was that okay? But one of these fights, it was in Quirius, where it was pretty even. Imperium lost a total of 21 bill, while Pappy ended up losing 8 bill. And looking at the teams, they were pretty even, with Imperium bringing 272 pilots and Pappy bringing 286. Um, during this fleet, I believe this fleet was initially led by Securitas. We were defending a timer that Goons had reinforced. Uh, Goons then started bringing Munins, to which the Pappy fleet started pinging off to random spots to sort of confuse and mess with them a little bit. And it was kind of interesting because there were Goons saying in local constantly calling us cowards, which, I mean, I'm of the opinion that like the idea that you can bully your enemy verbally into submission, and I've said this many, many times before, just doesn't work. Like, it, Goons and Imperium have been trying this sort of bully tactic by calling us cowards, saying, "Oh, we're just a bunch of dirty blobbers," since the beginning of the war, and like, look at where we're at now. And this fight is literally an example of no, it's not that Pappy doesn't want to take fights that are even. Like, we did and we won. So I don't know. I hate this whole narrative thing, but I need it so that I have content for my show.
Well, unfortunately, the narratives are important, right? I mean, because you have these two diametrically opposed kind of groups. But even if you didn't, though, even if you just had two small alliances who, just wanted to fight, or one was invading the other, right? And you're both going to sustain losses, because you will both sustain losses again. But we live in this age, as we've just talked about, that where losses basically demonized, and the only thing that exists is winning. Well, how do you get your guys after you've just taken a loss, and you believe that you're like the one true good alliance, and that you should be purging the evil from this game, because that's the narratives we've chosen. So if you do that, then how do you get them to come back after they've taken this massive loss? Like, the narratives kind of help a lot in that regard, in my opinion. I don't think that the goon narratives are designed to necessarily break Pappy as much as they are to also like bolster their numbers, keep morale up a little bit, and like, look how toxic we're being, look how awesome this is, and like, we're obviously better than them. Look at the memes that we can generate. It's like this whole other form of showboating that exists, right? Now, obviously, like you said, like, well, it's this bullying is not going to result in the collapse of something. It can, if the cracks have already been formed within a group, right? That kind of rhetoric, and that kind of the bolstering of numbers can definitely put a lot of pressure on a group. So I think that a lot of people in today's cancel culture age are very much against the narratives and the toxicity and all that stuff. As long as you're not going on about people's IRLs, you're not doxing, you're not doing the things that are clearly prohibited in the game. I honestly think that it's, in my personal opinion, fair play, and that it's a big part of EVE Online, and it always has
it
been.
is the game. It is playing what playing the game has become. There's clearly not enough game in the game to play, so here's some more playing the game outside of the game.
Exactly.
live
And I
for
mean,
it.
that's a good point, because how many fights do you actually get? If there's not a giant hell war, how many fights do you actually go to in a week, like as a player? Not a lot. Like, I'm an FC, so I try to go and find stuff. When I find stuff, it's great, but like, maybe one or two. What am I doing the rest of the time? Like, maybe, I'm a CEO, so I'm doing all this other stuff. But like, my line members are bored. Like, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to go on Reddit, right? And then it becomes this whole other thing. And you're right. Like, if there was more game to play, there might be a lot less of this at the end of the day. There'd be a lot less time in people's hands. But hey, at the end of the day, I don't want people to look at it as I don't know, this horrible thing that the goons are doing, or that tests are doing. I mean, it's kind of funny that the side that has test on it are going to complain about Reddit posting, right? Because they are, which is funny. But like, Reddit's been a thing for a while. It's literally based on Reddit posting. And I don't think it was constructive Reddit posting all the time, right? It hasn't been 100% constructive since the founding of Reddit. So I just find it funny. Both sides are saying, well, look at what they're saying. These guys are bad. This is horrible. Like, no, you guys are both the bad guys. That's what you have to just get to the point where nobody's good. This game is about taking, right? And I'm totally at home with that. And I mean, so is Snuff, right? In order for me to thrive, I must make something small or die. And that is the essence of my being, right? And does it make me a bad person? Right. And does it
smaller groups to when you're big?
Right, exactly. So does it make me a monster? I mean, to the smaller groups, sure, but it's a matter of perspective, right? This idea that we always have to be the good and pure thing all the time is ridiculous, and like, that will actually limit your, I think, growth in EVE Online. If you embrace being the bad guy sometimes, so that your guys can, so a mother wolf goes out and kills a rabbit, right, and brings it home to her pups, right? It's a great thing for the pups, right? It's a horrible thing for the rabbit. But who's the monster? Where's the morality? Like, how do you judge that? Right? Because we're human, we've created this I'm the good guy all the time because I live in my own little narrative, right? Which is great. So now everything around me that happens against me is a bad thing, right? So these people are bad, and me and my people are good. And this is like this giant tribalism thing, and EVE Online is I call it a tribalism machine, because that's what it does. It basically just spins our natural inborn tribalism to a degree where, we're on Reddit just like chimping at each other. And I mean, it's honestly, it's a fair play in the game. Like, I have not really that big of an issue with it. You just have to rise above it, I suppose, on like an emotional level and a personal level. Try to rise above the horrible memes, and maybe just see it as a part of gameplay.
Well, yeah, and I can totally agree with that because like whenever I like me personally, whenever I see people shouting in local, on both sides, because I'm gonna be real, like both sides do it too. And honestly, I don't know which side's worse because I've seen some like I don't want to say like it's not that the things I've seen or heard people say have been like bullying. It's just it's been like really really dumb. Like I'm gonna use Trash Talk Tuesday as an example. That Brave guy that got on there and just started saying like the most random stuff. Like at a there's a point between just like random shit talking and then just like sounding like an idiot. And I think that there's definitely been a whole lot more of just sounding like an idiot than like shit talking.
Sure. So where are the adults in the room to correct those people, right? Like that, and that's what you need. You need stronger voices who are willing to correct the people who are just they're or making the wrong memes, or they're doing thing in an incorrect way, or they're going after more than they should be in their jokes, or like you need some form of adulting, right? At the end of the day, though, like who's to say? I mean, it's the internet, man. Like, and we're all just kind of caught up in it. Like EVE Online has taken some massive bounds from where it used to be. Like I used to play this game and it was like the most toxic thing on the internet. Like it was horrible, right? And like I
Yeah.
kind of like that because like that's just me, but personally. But I mean that's like it was really bad, right? Like since then the game has definitely changed. It's changed a lot with what people were demanding, that people in society were demanding. People don't want to spend all day with all of this like racist banter and like in chat windows, for example, in their local chats, like obviously, right? So as the internet evolved, as society evolved, we'll say, and continued to move forward and be more progressive and whatever, like the game is also changing. Is change in the game going to be immediate? No. Is change in society going to be immediate? No. We're always just kind of working on it, right? At the end of the day, everyone just needs to remember that it's a fucking game and everyone just needs to calm down, like basically.
And you say that like the adult in the room needs to step in and stop this this kind of behavior from individuals. Have you seen politics in the Western world for the last 5 years?
Yes, I know, and I know, and it's a
There could
it
be 100 adults and 2 children, and the 2 children could get screamed at by the adults, but they'll be far more interested in continuing to yell at each other, because that is more that captures their imagination more on both sides. Everybody is guilty of it.
Yeah,
right. And at the same time, like it is actually a pretty funny thing when the world leaders are the biggest memers, right? Like that's insane. So I mean, I don't know, man. Like, the only thing I can say is like, so as a CEO, I have a leadership role within my corp, obviously. So, we are built around, we'll say, responsible toxicity. So here's an outlet from society where you can say what you feel, all right, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, right? As long as there are clear guidelines to, like, there are obvious,
Subjective, is it not?
well, there are obvious levels to which I will allow banter to go on within my Discord. All right, and some of you are part of that Discord, and you can see how that goes. If lines get crossed, those people are immediately talked to about it. Right, we will not cross those lines because those lines should not be crossed. Right, and now by allowing people that outlet, I think it actually creates a very interesting dynamic where they can go off into Eve, uh, play with the Alliance, play with whoever who have different values, which we will respect, and do so in a very professional and responsible way, generally, right? I think to say that we have to be good all the time and that these things that people are thinking and feeling are wrong, it's like this weird prohibitionist kind of moral take on how you have to live your life. And I think that has never been a constructive thing within society. It seems it always has the best of intentions, but prohibition of anything has always led to horrible things happening, right? So I think that there has to be like some responsibility put on the leadership within even just corps individually to make sure that your members are representing your group to the public and to the game in a certain kind of way, in a responsible way, and in a metered way, right? Now, banter amongst ourselves in our private channels, whatever, right? As long as nobody's hurt and everyone is laughing, great, right? But I think that like that is a thing that needs to kind of maybe happen more of. And if we have more of that, honestly, like you have a lot of some younger people coming into the game, I think that that's actually a great gauge for like how society should just be moving in general. But
yeah.
but
There's a
but you don't.
huge gap between banter and just people shouting racial slurs at each other.
Well, yeah, obviously.
There's a
But we're
lot
gonna-
of gulf between them, and people often don't seem to understand that there is a huge difference.
Right, but you also have a culture now that exists in society where, well, this equals like this leads to this, and then this leads to this, and then this leads to this horrible thing. So we can't have any of it, right? And I think that that's a mistake. It's this
Like,
puritanical kind of vision of what humanity should be, and I just don't think it fits with what humanity currently is, and that goes for everyone in humanity, by the way. So you know what I mean? I don't know how the fuck we got on this topic, but that's my philosophy on it, right? So to give somebody a small outlet here and say, look, we're a group of friends, and this is how we're going to behave and interact within ourselves, and then you are expected to behave and interact a certain other way with people who do not share our vision of the world, I think is a perfectly acceptable way of doing things, and I think it's something that is probably needed. Honestly, you probably get a lot less spurging on Reddit if you had those kinds of things happening within corps of EVE Online. Personally, that's my belief. I don't know if could be wrong.
and
Let-
I totally agree with you, Loki. Like, and to use credit, like I haven't like the last time I saw. Actually, no, there was no last time. Like I've never seen someone go into one of these like Eve discords and start yelling racial slurs without immediately getting shot out the airlock. Like a lot of like the real hardcore bullying, just I haven't seen it in Eve.
Right. I mean, you're
Or
gonna
it's
have
one-on-one rather than anywhere that a lot of people can see it.
Yeah, or that. And I mean, like, with the internet and obviously this game, like, there's no law on who gets to play EVE Online. There's no law on who gets to go onto the internet, right? And so you get all kinds of people, and some people have challenges. Some people have mental health issues. Some people have all kinds of different things that lead to certain kinds of behavior or certain responses to behavior, right? Now, personally, I'm like the personal responsibility guy where I'm just like, look, like if you can't handle the kind of shit that happens on the internet, you need to probably seriously look into just like limiting your access to it or your involvement with it, right? Um, at the same time, the other way goes too. If you can't behave yourself, well, you probably have no place being there. And you know what I mean? And now there's a whole bunch of people who are going to go, oh, well, you can't shame people for not being able to take all the crazy shit that happens on the internet. It's just that, you don't go into the Wild West as somebody who doesn't know how to also fire a gun or defend himself, right? Like I don't go into a bad neighborhood if I don't feel completely confident that I'll, be able to
If you
support
don't
99. Well, or if I don't need to, sure. But if I'm willingly going to go into a bad neighborhood for whatever reason, um, I'm confident in my ability to manage things to a degree, right? So, you know, crazy things can happen, sure, but for the most part, it should be good. It should be fine, right? And I don't put myself at any more risk than I have to in life, right? And I mean, that kind of should go for the internet too, shouldn't it? I mean, it is a free place, and there are many places that you can go on the internet that are free spaces, right? Reddit is one of those places where if you're a snowflake, you'll probably get crushed, or I don't know, melted, I guess would be a better thing for this analogy.
not upvoted,
Or not, yeah, exactly, not upvoted. Boo hoo
the
hoo.
worst possible demise on Reddit.
Or on Facebook, man. If I don't get the likes on Facebook, dude, holy smokes, right? Like, what is going on? Like, what am I doing? Like, when you start matching your own self worth to things, the arbitrary opinions of others, there's going to be an issue, and that's largely what the internet is. And I think that that's a failing on everyone personally. I think that if you're that emotionally, I don't know how to say this without offending people, broken. Where like if I post a video and I don't get if I don't get the amount of likes that I think that I deserve, right, or that I'm entitled to because I'm X person on the internet or I'm X person in EVE Online, then I'm gonna somehow have some emotional reaction to it and actually like allow that to affect my personal life. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's crazy to me. Although I mean, this is a large part of like why Facebook and why social media and why the internet, I mean, is so addictive. I get dopamine boost when somebody likes my video, right? And it's true. Like I could put a Reddit post and I got like 75 people, right? Now for me, 75 people is a lot because nobody knows who the fuck I am, which is great. So I got 75 people. Holy shit, that's great. Right? And like I'm happy about it. So, to a certain degree you get that dopamine boost and then, but then the cancel squad comes in and now, oh, my 75 just turned into 40. Oh no. Right? I'm not gonna like cry about it. Like it's it's whatever.
Perhaps the worst thing about this is that it makes people change their personality to a personality that everybody collectively agrees. It's a hive mind thing. Being with a group of 10 people means that there'll be some differences there. There isn't necessarily going to be an overwhelming agreement about what type of a personality you're supposed to have. When you put yourself in with 1 billion people, then what people do, what we all do, even when you know that this is a thing that happens to you, what we all do is we change ourselves to become what will be liked, what will be upvoted.
We're all wearing masks, my friend. I mean, as much as nobody wants to admit it, right? And then that's where you see that there is a marked behavior in some individuals on EVE Online that would not match up with who they are IRL. And I might be one of those people to a degree, right? I will do things in EVE Online that would be unnecessarily cruel. Um, maybe I'll slowly destroy an NRDS group for fun, for lulz, right? And and then copy and paste all of their little discussions and salt that they do. But IRL, I'm like a really nice guy, and I'm a responsible adult, and I have a really important job, and I do things, right? So I mean, there are masks that we wear. For me to be able to lead my corp, right? Like I had to some degree adopt certain characteristics that might be more befitting a leader, right? And maybe I act a certain way. Maybe I say things differently. Maybe my voice gets a little bit deeper when I'm, doing my soda or whatever, right? Like maybe those things happen. Um, it's all part of being human, I think. At the end of the day, it's this idea that you're perfect the way you are and you never have to change a thing. I mean, sure, but we all have to change in order to be accepted, right? And when we're not accepted, well, what's going to happen? Like, how is that going to affect you personally? If it affects you personally, I mean, that's a you thing more than it's an other people thing, in my opinion. But at the same time, people on the internet do go a little bit overboard. I see the argument on both sides of this, but I'm just more on the side of personal responsibility. If you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen.
There you go. That's a life lesson from Loki there.
There you
So
go.
I think that about wraps up the show. Is there any other final thoughts that you guys have?
I'm playing a very special game here, which hurts to play, and that is obviously CSM elections. So vote for me. Thanks.
All right, you're running again. All right. When is the elections due?
Uh, June or something like that, give or take. I can't remember.
Going to go again?
I wonder if I was gonna say I wonder if we're gonna be able to do the CSM debates again. Probably not, but
Oh, that was great fun though last time.
that was good. I like that. I enjoyed that. My plug, I guess, I'm the CEO of Banana Republic, IQ 300. We're recruiting, so I don't know. Check us out.
Thanks,
I'm not sure I have any final thoughts.
Sorry, Gregorian, I completely accidentally skipped you. But yeah, Dex, do you have any final thoughts?
No, man, it's glad to have you guys along, man. It's been a good conversation. Very much a world away from Trash Talk Tuesday, but it's been could be, dare we say, constructive. But hopefully, more importantly, hopefully people listening, if there is any, hopefully they've enjoyed it as well.
You don't think Trash Talk Tuesday is constructive?
I've only watched like a couple of minutes of it, and like I couldn't take it anymore. But it's just not my thing, man.
That's a big oof. Anyway,
Wait, we have naysayers in the show? What? I was
so confused.
I will say this. I will say this. It is actually kind of impressive the amount of functional kind of things you can do with that amount of screaming at each other. To be fair, but I could see why it wouldn't be your cup of tea, dude.
That about wraps up the show. I want to thank all the guests for coming on this week. If you're watching this show and you like what you see, then please hit that follow button. New and post streams, Eve-related shows throughout the week, including Trash Talk Tuesday on Tuesday, Lasers and Lace on Thursday, and Between Two Keepstars every other Sunday. Always remember to bubble wrap your Keepstars, and we'll see you guys next time.